Hello, music fans. You're watching Death by Unicorn, and this is my segment called What's New 2024, where I talk about new albums that came out in metal, rock, and prog. And today I'm going to talk about 8 albums that came out over the past week. Most of these came out on March 8th, maybe one came out on March 7th. And I'll talk about them in my order of preference. The big name one actually this week is Judas Priest, so people are going to want to hear what I think about that, and that's going to be the third one that I mentioned, as it's my third favorite of this batch. But my favorite one that I've heard over the past week was Turbulence and their album Binary Dreams. This is the third album by this band from Lebanon, and it's progressive metal. And this is the first album of theirs that I've heard. I don't think I've ever listened to any other band from Lebanon before, so it's also the first music from Lebanon that I listened to. And this album by Turbulence is a near masterpiece. It's right up my alley. The title track is a prog epic. That was my favorite on my first couple listens. It's really good prog metal. It has all clean vocals that are really well done for fans of bands like Tesseract, because it has a bit of that djent sound, but it isn't totally reliant on djent to the point where I wouldn't call them just a djent band. It has a mix of Pain of Salvation sound in there. Sounds a bit like a mix of Tesseract and Pain of Salvation, maybe with a little bit of Haken in there too. So those are all bands that I love, and I love the sound of this band Turbulence. So I will be checking out their back catalog soon, needless to say, and hopefully it's as good as this, and I might have a new band to add to my favorite list. Next one I want to talk about is an album by a band called Vicinity, and it's the Roman numeral 8, so VIII. Although it's the third album by this Norwegian prog metal band, and it's another near masterpiece. The opening track is amazing. It reminds me of the band Teramaze from Australia. I think they're from Australia. And of course, it's hard to avoid comparing this band to Dream Theater, because they play this style of prog metal with great metal riffs, instrumental virtuosity, guitar solos, keyboard solos. The Singularity is a great song. It's probably my favorite after a couple listens. Shape of Life is a softer song, but also great. So if this sounds good to you, check out Vicinity and their album 8. Now I get to talk about the big one that came out this week, which is Judas Priest and their album Invincible Shield. This is the 19th album by this heavy metal band from the UK. It's excellent, shockingly excellent considering how old the members of the band are. They still know how to rock with the best of them. When I started the album, I had already heard the singles, so I knew there would be lots of great songs since those were all so strong. But I expected there would be some dud tracks on the album. But I started the album and I just kept getting served with banger track after banger track. Panic Attack and Serpent and the King, they start out the album really strong. They remind me of the sound of the Painkiller album, which is my favorite Judas Priest album. Invincible Shield, Devil in Disguise, and Gates of Hell continue the excellence. The guitar solos and leads and riffs are great. Rob's vocals are powerful. Crown of Horns slows it down a bit, but I don't mind that because it's just so catchy and powerful. It has a great solo, and it's the perfect spot for a slower song on the album. As God Is My Witness and Trial by Fire are also excellent. Escape from Reality and Sons of Thunder have an almost thrash metal sound to them to my ears. And some of the tracks on the album have this almost southern rock combined with groove metal vibe that just makes me bob my head. Giants in the Sky has a part where it went to acoustic or maybe Spanish classical guitar. That was a nice surprise. And it also had an anthemic chorus. To my surprise, there were no duds among the standard track listing. There are 3 bonus tracks on the deluxe version that I listened to on Spotify. I could see why those 3 were picked to be bonus tracks. I think 2 of them are the weakest tracks for me after a couple listens. Fight of Your Life, and the weakest one for me was Vicious Cycle. It was the first and really the only dud on the album. And then lastly, I assume The Lodger was a bonus track because it doesn't fit the style of the rest of the album. since it's more theatrical, neoclassical, and melodramatic sounding, and could have fit in on their Nostradamus album, but I think it's great, and it could have been on the standard album just to add some more variety. All in all, it's surprisingly probably in my top 5 favorite Judas Priest albums overall, and I won't be surprised if this ends up in my year-end top 25 albums, which I really didn't expect from Judas Priest, given their aging rocker status. Next, the 4th album that I want to mention is Makari and their album Wave Machine. This is the 2nd album by this band from the US, and it's kind of post-hardcore with emo, pop punk, but also some progressive rock, ambient, and alternative rock sprinkled in there. It's the 2nd album by this band from the US. It features the vocalist from Monuments and Termina, who I think is just a truly amazing vocalist, Andy Cizek. This is him focusing more on his emo and pop punk vocal style, whereas the other bands he's in, he focuses more on his metalcore and screaming vocals, but sprinkles in a bit of his softer voice too. On this one, there's really not much screaming at all. It really heavily focuses on singing. I'm not always big on the post-hardcore and emo sound, but I do like this particular style and brand of post-hardcore with great guitar work and innovative songwriting. I think fans of Hail the Sun should like this album a lot. That's Makari and Wave Machine. Next up is Midas Fall with their album Cold Waves Divide Us. This is the 5th album by this band from the UK. It's post-rock. It's got some electronic, alternative, progressive, gothic, and math rock influences. It reminds me a bit of Sigur Rós, that style of post-rock, but it has strong female vocals. It's really relaxing and beautiful music that takes you on a journey as you listen to it. Another excellent album. Check out Midas Fall and their album Cold Waves Divide Us. Now, that's it for my excellent tier batch of albums. So the near masterpieces I talked about today were Turbulence and Vicinity. My excellent picks for today are Judas Priest, Makari, and Midas Fall. The rest I'm going to talk about are in my very good tier. Didn't quite make excellent or near masterpiece or masterpiece. So I want to talk about Marath and their album Karma. This is the 6th album from this band from Tunisia, another country where I don't think I've heard any music from that country before. This might be the first time I've listened to a band from Tunisia. And it's progressive power metal with symphonic metal influences in there. And I had never heard this band before, but I did listen to an early release track from the album ahead of time, and it sounded cool. Actually, there were 4 singles they released ahead of time. But when I listened to the singles, it really sounded more like symphonic power metal than it did like prog metal, even though I saw it labeled as prog metal somewhere. So I was really expecting it to be proggier, and I felt the same way as I was listening to the album. There was still some intricacy to it that was a little bit proggier than your standard symphonic power metal. There was some Middle Eastern influence in there. It reminded me of Orphan Land, so that was cool. It's very good music, but not up into my excellent tier yet. Next, I'm going to talk about the Bardic Depths and their album What We Really Like in Stories. This is the 3rd album by this band from the UK. It's progressive rock. For fans of bands like Big Big Train, it's mostly soft singer-songwriter songs that have been progified by adding some cool interludes and solos. Great performances captured by all members. They do have a lot of potential, I think. I think they could make an album that I would put up in my excellent tier, but I'm just going to call this one very good for now. I think it's just missing some edge to it or some heaviness or some innovation to really make me more interested in this. But songwriting, playing is all great here. And lastly, still a really good album. I'm really happy with everything I listen to. So just because it's last in my order of preference doesn't mean it's bad. It's Sonata Arctica and their album Clear Cold Beyond. This is the 11th album by this band from Finland. It's symphonic power metal. It has some progressive influences as well. It's the 11th, their 11th album. Really well executed. If you like symphonic power metal with the neoclassical style guitar playing, it's got a lot of that with the fast arpeggios. It's got powerful power metal vocals. If you're a fan of bands like Stradivarius, I think you'll like this one by Sonata Arctica, Clear Cold Beyond. And that's it for my first impressions on these 8 albums that came out recently in March 2024. Let me know if there's any other albums that you've listened to that came out recently that you think I'd enjoy. Let me know about them down in the comments. And what do you think about these albums that I talked about today? Do you agree with my opinions on them? Do you love some of them? Do you hate them? Let me know. And stay tuned for next time. Peace out.